Imagine a world where kindness is the currency and empathy is the infrastructure. It sounds like a dream, but a quiet revolution is already underway, built on the simplest act of human connection. A shared laugh, a door held open, a genuine thank you. These small moments are not trivial. They are quietly reshaping lives, relationships, and communities, one human interaction at a time. Welcome to We Have a Spiritual Problem, a podcast where we confront the deeper questions beneath our personal struggles and collective crises. I am your host, Dr. Jeff Armstrong. I am not a theologian or a philosopher, or at least in training. I am a PhD exercise physiologist with an interest in the intersection of the physical and the spiritual. In this episode, we explore how everyday micro acts of kindness, smiling, listening, helping, thanking, carry enormous spiritual power. In a world marked by loneliness, speed, and disconnection, these small gestures may be the most practical and profound spiritual practices we have. Imagine a world where kindness is currency and empathy is infrastructure. It sounds like a dream, especially as we examine the present social and political climate. But the potential of a quiet revolution is on the horizon, built on the simplest act of human connection. A shared laugh, a door held open, a genuine thank you. These are not just polite gestures. They are spiritual technologies. They change people. They change communities. They change us. Previous guest on this podcast, Dr. Rob Kelly, taught us that a life can be changed with just two words: nice sneakers. We often talk about spiritual problems in big terms: loss of meaning, loneliness, fragmentation, anxiety, polarization, disconnection. We assume that big problems need big solutions, grand philosophies, massive reforms, revolutionary ideas. But what if the spiritual crisis of our time is not solved from the top down, but from the ground up? What if it is healed not by brilliance, but by kindness? Our age is loud, fast, performative. We are constantly broadcasting, reacting, comparing, defending, consuming. But somewhere along the way, we forgot how to be gently human with one another. We forgot how powerful it is to simply notice someone, to acknowledge their presence, to care, to say, nice sneakers. Loneliness has become one of the defining conditions of modern life. Not just being alone, but feeling unseen, unneeded, unconnected. You can be surrounded by people and still feel invisible. You can have thousands of digital connections and no one truly knows you. This is not just a social problem. It is a spiritual one. Because to be human is to be relational. We are wired not just for survival, but for belonging. Not just for achievement, but for connection. Not just for success, but for meaning. And meaning is almost always born of relationship. We often think of spirituality as something private and internal, what we believe, what we feel, what we think about God or life or purpose. But spirituality is so profoundly interpersonal. It is about how we treat one another, how we see one another, how we show up for one another. Kindness is not shallow. It is not weak. It is not trivial. Kindness is the invisible expression of spiritual health. When you are deeply disconnected from yourself, you struggle to care about others. When you are deeply afraid, you become guarded and harsh. When you feel unseen, you stop seeing. When your own spirit is wounded, your behavior reflects that wound. Kindness is not just something we give. It is something that flows from who we are becoming. But here's the beautiful paradox. Kindness is also something that makes us who we are becoming. When you practice kindness, even in small ways, you are not just helping someone else. You are shaping your own soul. Think about the smallest acts that have ever meant something to you. A teacher who believed in you. A stranger who helped you when you were lost. Someone who remembered your name. Someone who noticed you were hurting. Someone who didn't fix you, but stayed with you. Those moments stick because they touch something deeper than convenience or politeness. They touch our need to matter. Most people are not starving for money or success. They are starving for significance, for the feeling that their life is seen, valued, and meaningful to someone else. Kindness tells a person you exist and your existence matters. That is a spiritual message. We don't need to convince people of meaning. We need to embody it. And embodiment happens in small ways. You don't need to change the world to change someone's world. Holding a door is not heroic, but it says, I see you. Listening without interrupting is not dramatic, but it says, you are worth my attention. Saying thank you is not that complicated, but it says, what you did mattered. Smiling is not profound, but it says, you are not alone in this space. We underestimate these gestures because they don't feel impressive, but they are powerful precisely because they are human. We live in a culture obsessed with scale, big platforms, big influence, big numbers, big impact. But souls are not changed at scale. They are changed in moments. One conversation, one act, one decision to be kind instead of indifferent. And the spiritual problem of our time is not ignorance. It is indifference. We know more than any generation before us. We have access to more wisdom, more ideas, more tools. But knowledge without compassion becomes cold. Power without empathy becomes destructive. Information without connection becomes meaningless. Kindness is what turns knowledge into wisdom. There is something quietly radical about being kind in a world that rewards speed, dominance, and self-promotion. Kindness slows you down. It makes you notice. It makes you human again. When you are kind, you step out of autopilot. You interrupt the constant rush of self-concern. You move even briefly into the life of another person. And in doing so, you rediscover your own. Kindness is not something you do. It's a way of being present. And presence is spiritual. Most of us are physically near one another, but spiritually absent. We're in the same rooms, the same stores, the same streets, but not really with each other. Our minds are somewhere else. Our attention is divided. Our hearts are guarded. Kindness reunites attention and intention. It brings your mind and your heart into the same moment. To be kind, you must see. To be kind, you must care. To be kind, you must slow down enough to notice. That is already a spiritual practice. We often think spirituality requires silence, solitude, study, prayer, or meditation. And those things matter. But spirituality also requires people. It requires friction, patience, forgiveness, generosity, listening, and grace. You don't discover the depth of your spirit by escaping people. You discover it by loving them. And love is rarely dramatic. It is usually quiet. It shows up as patience when you want to rush, as listening when you want to speak, as generosity when you want to protect, as kindness when you could choose indifference. That is where the soul is shaped. Every time you choose kindness, something in you becomes more human, more whole, more alive. You don't need to fix the world. You don't need to carry everyone's pain. You don't need to solve every problem. You need to be kind where you are, to the person in front of you, to the stranger beside you, to the family member who frustrates you, to the coworker you overlook, to yourself. Yes, even yourself. Because self-contempt is just as spiritually damaging as cruelty to others. Kindness that does not include you is incomplete. The way you speak to yourself becomes the way you speak to the world. The way you treat yourself becomes the way you treat others. Healing starts at home. And the first home is in your heart. When you practice kindness, you are practicing belonging. When you practice belonging, you are practicing meaning. When you practice meaning, you are practicing spirituality. The spiritual problem of our time is not that people don't believe enough. It's that people don't belong enough. They don't feel seen enough. They don't feel valued enough. They don't feel connected enough. And kindness is how we repair that. Not all at once, not dramatically, not perfectly, but slowly, quietly, faithfully. One smile, one thank you, one moment of listening, one small act of care. These are not small things. They are how we remember who we are. They are how we remind others who they are. They are how the soul learns to breathe again. So start small. Be kind in the ordinary moments. Be gentle in the unnoticed places. Be human in a world that forgets how. Because the quiet revolution is not coming. It is already here. And it begins wherever you choose kindness today. Thank you for joining me on my spiritual journey. If you benefited from today's episode, hit the like button and share the podcast with a friend. And I like your sneakers.